Hi, my name's Bryden. I'm going to take you through time to explore how education has changed the status of women through a postmodernist lens. I have found a couple of photographs and pictures to help get a better understanding of what revolutions have happened to get women to today. A place where women have the ability to be well educated and have the desire to want it all in life: family, education, and a meaningful career. Michael Foucault, a postmodernist philosopher who suggests that knowledge itself is a form of power, and I feel that through adult education, women are more educated and more powerful than they have ever been. I wanted to find out exactly how women got to this place. I use pictures to help tell a story. I will start my story in the modern era in the early 1900s, when women typically did not receive advanced education, and the education they did receive was to help them succeed in household chores and managing a family home. I will move through to the postmodern era, starting in the 1970s, when there was a push for gender equality and women started taking their careers into their own hands and wanted to lead a balanced life between family and career. So let's take a look at women's educational history starting in the modern era. A household science class that women attended to learn how to iron. In the same course, women were taught how to cook. Notice that there's no men in this class, which exemplifies the modernist ideal where roles are clearly separated by gender. Were often regarded with contempt by the male-oriented society, and women were seen to merely complement men, to keep a household and raise children rather than seen as individuals with logical minds. This type of educational class at McGill further separates the roles of women and men and could be considered to be detrimental to women's individual development. In 1921, there was one woman in the first graduating class from the Faculty of Agriculture at UBC. In 1925, Sabin Florence Rena became the first woman to be elected into the U.S. National Academy of Sciences. In her 1929 Pictorial Review Annual Achievement Award speech, she said, "It matters little whether men or women have more brains. All we women need to do to exert our proper influence is just to use all the brains we have." This quote strongly reflects Foucault's postmodern view on the link between power and knowledge, suggesting that when women use their knowledge, they have the power to influence others. In the Great Depression, the movement to advance women in education was traded for survival. Parents were not able to provide their children with school supplies, and some were forced to drop out. Teachers' salaries were cut, and some schools closed due to lack of funding. However, there was still some historical moments made by women in this era, including Amelia Earhart, the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean in 1928. With a modernist lens, this feat would be considered as liberating. However, looking through Foucault's perspective, Amelia Earhart arrived at this moment with discipline, using her knowledge and power to achieve this. World War II provided an opportunity for women to enter the workplace. Women were trained to work in factories, offices, and as journalists and broadcasters. Some also joined the war front as soldiers and nurses, exceeding the expectations of men. Men retrieved their placement in the workforce and women were displaced. However, women had the opportunity to experience independence during this time. Lyotard's postmodern definition of performativity comes into play here, in that training such as this in World War II just educated women. to have the skills that were needed at the time, and didn't provide knowledge that would lead to ideals and freedoms. Going back to Foucault's theory on power and knowledge, in this decade it would indicate that men had taken back their power after the war and taking their jobs back. Women were left with less power, and the knowledge they gained while being trained effectively became useless with no job to use it. Men used their power as a form of control over the household. Now, in the 1960s, equal rights in education and employment were won. With the availability of birth control pill, women had the opportunity to create a life with family as well as career. This picture shows the first teacher in the United States teaching while pregnant in 1968. Social changes also affected women's enrollment in higher education. Women started to enter into chemistry, physics, math, business, instead of their traditional roles as teachers or nurses. Here we see Sally Ride, an iconic figure for females, being the first woman to go to space. Historically, the space industry has been male dominated, but with education and lots of training, Sally Ride broke social norms and showed women that they are just as capable as men, and in fact, women are beginning to take over predominantly male industries. In the postmodernist era, the amount of women in university is higher than it has ever been. In fact, statistics show that the amount of women getting secondary education has grown so much that more females now attend university in general than males. With increased rates of educated women, there is also increased rates of women in the workforce. Social norms have changed, and it is more common to see both parents working and sharing work around the house. This has definitely been a transition from modernism to postmodernism, and although it does not apply to every household, it is seen through the majority of them. Through changing social norms and postmodernist society, women use adult education as a means to further their careers, holding more power in society now than ever before. Foucault, a postmodernist philosopher, suggests knowledge creates power, and this is exemplified by current society and women's changing role. So this concludes my presentation. I now want to leave you with these two questions. First question: do you think women hold the same social standing now as men, or do you believe further education and social change is needed to push gender equality? Question 2. After knowing the benefits or comparative advantage that women gain from getting post-secondary education to men, do you think the number of women to men going to school will continue rising, or will men and women reach an equilibrium when gender equality is equal? Thanks.